Hey there, it's Wilco the Kreij here with all of you, and in this video I want to share how I'm preparing a 7-figure Facebook ads funnel. And this is not based on theory, this is not based on some wishful thinking. This is something that we've done multiple times, and it's actually a certain procedure, certain steps that we always take in order to get there. What does it even mean? So obviously once people click on our Facebook ad, then they go somewhere, right? And that's what we call a funnel. I know a lot of people think that, having a successful Facebook funnel is all down to the tricks and the tiny little details and making sure your Facebook ads stands out and all that. But the reality is that it's actually a lot more boring. But in a way also a lot more predictable than that, which is really, really good, because obviously as a business owner, you don't want to spend a ton of time and then maybe get it to work, but it's way better to, have a process that if you follow it correctly, it will work. So the first thing for us is always to realize what is the funnel that's going to work. Because if we start to map out a new funnel, there's no way we can guess, hey, this is going to work. Like if we do that, it'd be super easy, right? But obviously it requires work. So if we can't guess, then the only other way is to test, right? So we always start top down, we want to test the most important things first. So that means the very first thing is I want to test out what funnel works. And I'll give you an example. A while back, I created a funnel. So initially, if someone would click on my Facebook ad, right, they would then go to an opt-in page where they can enter their email address, and then right after opting in, I would send them a video, right? And then a day later, they would get another video, and this is done via email, right? So another email saying, hey, cool, this is the video number 2. And then on day 3, they would get another video, right? And there is actually, that would be where we try to sell things to people. And this failed miserably, did not work. And obviously that's because, when people click on your Facebook ad right here, and if you're gonna wait 3 days before you're actually gonna introduce them with an offer and try to get them to sell or buy your product, right? They've probably already forgot who you are in that regard. So this did not work, big failure. So the second thing I tried is all right, you know what? After they click on my Facebook ad, I am gonna, you know what? I'm just gonna test it out. Send them to straight away to a sales page. See if that actually works. Now, as I was sort of guessing, but still, it's always good to try. This did not work either. Another thing I tried is actually sort of similar to what I just showed you with the 3-part video, but instead of showing the 3 videos basically one by one once every day, basically I showed the video right away after the opt-in, after they entered their email address. I would show them a video, right? And then right below there would be a text link, right? And if they click that link right away, they would be able to see the second video, right? And then below that will be a text link, and that right away would show them the 3rd video, so that on the very first day they would be able to, become a customer, right? Because in these videos, I'm obviously providing value, I'm teaching them about something, but after I provided value and after I sketched out whatever I wanted to teach them, then I obviously made them an offer, right, where they could actually make a purchase. Now, even this also did not work, right? So again, I'm just trying out things. I'm really just trying out things. And when I say did not work, I was spending way more money than I was actually making back. The funnel did not convert at all. So then at some point I was all right, if they click on my ad, once again, I'm getting them to enter their email address because I want to start building a relationship with them, right? And now I was going to send them into a webinar. So obviously there would be a webinar thank you page first, thank you. And then I would do a live webinar, right? And this campaign, this works. This worked. Was it profitable? No, actually it wasn't. But it was around break even. And that to me was a good sign, right? If something is at break even initially, while some people may think but it's break even, is that actually good? Yes, it is. It's actually really good. At least I know, I can optimize it. We can turn it into profitability, right? So now that we knew the outline, now that we knew all right, so a webinar funnel is actually really good. So to get people for this particular product, to get people to click on our ad, join our webinar, hey, I've got this training where I'm talking about viral marketing, and then on the webinar I talk about viral marketing. I talk about how to generate viral traffic using obviously viral, which is one of our products that we sell. And then at the end I would make them an offer, hey, by the way, if you wanna do this yourself as well, then you could build it all out yourself, or you can just use a viral. And again, that converted roughly at break even. So knowing that, right, with all these sort of elements, so here, right here would be the Facebook ad, and then from the Facebook ad would be the opt-in page, and then from the opt-in page would be the thank you page, right, where you give them a confirmation, and then would be the actual webinar, and obviously from the webinar we send them to the checkout page. So this is sort of the funnel on a high level view. Now, what would, like, the next thing what we would do is, like, we would figure out, like, this is mostly guessing, which part of the funnel is going to be most impactful for our conversions. And what I believe is, in this case, it would definitely be the webinar, right? Because that's also based on numbers. Like, if, for example, my webinar would already convert at 10%, meaning I would be able to convert 10% of my attendees into a customer, then, like, I would not touch it. I would, like, all right, let's leave that for now. But initially, this was definitely my lowest point, right? It was not, the webinar wasn't converting as well as it should. How do I know? Well, honestly, I just looked at what's the percentage that it actually converted, and I started asking around at that time, right? I just started asking to other people who already do what I wanted to do, and most people, their webinars were converting like 3, 4, sometimes even 5 times higher than mine. I'm like, wow, that's an opportunity. So that's why I wanted to test the webinar first. Now, how do you test multiple webinars? That's actually a trick on itself. So basically what I did is, so I have my email list, right? So I have an email list of people that have subscribed to things in the past. And so what you can do is I basically assigned random tags, 5 to be exact, right? So what that means is I basically divided my list in 5 completely random sections of people, right? So there's nothing in particular. I'm just literally said, like, this first 20%, you are now a group of people. The next 20%, you are now a group of people. Next 20%, etc., etc. So now I get 5 tags. And what I would then do is I would just, invite this first selection, tag the group number A, group A, I would invite them to a webinar. Like, hey, I'm doing this webinar, when I do this webinar on Thursday. And usually what I would do is I would send out the invite first, even if I didn't have the webinar ready yet. And that would help me because then I'd had a deadline, right? I'm sending an invite out to a group of people on Thursday at 4 p.m. I'm doing a webinar. That means that by Thursday, 4 p.m., it needs to be ready. So that's a good personal thing to get it actually done. So I would actually do the webinar and I would see, for example, it would convert at 2%, right? Next week, I'd invite group B and maybe then it will be 3%, right? And then the week after, like maybe it'll be 5%. And the reason why it usually goes up over time, because every single time I do a webinar, I also learn from it, right? I'm not the best presenter in the world, definitely not actually. But over time, you'll start to see like what kind of questions are people asking, what are people responding to, and every single time I do different, like I teach different things in the webinar to just see like what resonates. And then perhaps like I remember like when I did this, usually like at some point it goes down again. I'm like, all right, so the change I just made, that didn't work, right? And then after a while, after a set of times, a set of webinars, I would know like, all right, this presentation is actually the best, which means that if I do this type of presentation, it has the highest likelihood of getting people to convert, right? So now I've got a winner on the webinar. Let's say this is the actual webinar. Go back to the actual funnel. So the webinar is optimized. Then what's the next step that will have the highest impact on my on this whole funnel? Again, this is not a definition, like it's always the same thing, but in my case, like I looked at the stats and I'm like, all right, the opt-in page, it only converted, I think it was initially at like 20%, which isn't bad, right? I had worse, but like we also in our business, we have pages that convert at around 45%, right? So I knew like, all right, this is something that needs to be improved. And when split testing an opt-in page, what's important is that you really need to do that in parallel with your Facebook ads, because if you're just gonna test out a certain opt-in page, it's very well possible that a certain opt-in page is just an awesome page. It's well written, it conveys the message that you wanted to convey, and it actually gets people to opt in, but it's not in alignment with the actual Facebook ads. I mean, if the Facebook ads would be talking about one thing, like let's say, hey, here's how you get free traffic, and the opt-in page would be, hey, here's how you build your email list. Those are two different things, right? So whatever is in your Facebook ad, you want to make sure it's sort of in alignment with your opt-in page. But that was the next page I was gonna test. And my real point here of this video is that it's not finding one thing or whatever it is. Like it's really step-by-step testing. Right now, while I'm talking, we're actually about to start a new funnel. And the main things I'm doing in preparation of that is exactly this. I'm preparing, all right, so what are the things we're gonna focus on first? Obviously, I'm gonna start out with my best guesses. So at this price point, probably the webinar is gonna be best. So I'll try to give that a go. For example, at around break even, if we start at break even, I just assume that webinar funnel is fine, right? And then I would start looking at I would measure in advance, what I would measure, right? So what is the cost per click for the Facebook ads? What is the opt-in conversion rate? What percentage of people that opt in actually go to the actual webinar, right? Or even what's the percentage of people that actually go to the checkout page? And on the checkout page, what's the percentage of people that actually buys? And I'll map that out so I can actually see where are most people dropping off. And then I'll start picking one element at a time. I'm not trying to make the whole funnel perfect. I'll be like, all right, I want to test out a better webinar. I want to test out the opt-in page. I want to test out one element at a time, and I start improving that. And over time, I know that even if I start at a break-even funnel, we can make it profitable. And yes, there's a ton of stuff that we can add in. For example, once we're at the opt-in page, we can add retargeting, right? And we can get people who didn't opt in to get them into their funnel again. Or even better, use behavioral retargeting using Connect Retarget, right? If you haven't used Connect Retarget yet, using Connect Retarget, you can actually retarget people based on how long they spent on your site, how far they scroll down, all stuff like that. It's really, really awesome. For example, also, once we start sending emails out after people opted in, right, we would also retarget our email list using Connect Audience. If you haven't used Connect Audience, it basically connects your CRM or your autoresponder with Facebook. So you can say hey, I want to target everyone who is, who opened this email or who did not open this email. So over time, we're going to add all these things and tweaks and cool stuff in. But the core of it, initially, it's all about mapping out your funnel and see what the issues are. And don't just think the whole funnel isn't working or my campaign isn't, it's losing money. It's just hard because you feel crap, it's just not working, and you just, you're annoyed, but perhaps it is. But perhaps all the steps in your funnel are wrong. In that case, it's fine to just scratch everything and delete it and start over. That's fine. But usually, there are certain steps in your funnel that actually are pretty good. And if you don't notice it, well, in fact, maybe 2 out of the 5 things are already working. You figured something out, it works. And then all you need to do is next time you need to plug these 2 things in place, start over, and then maybe you'll find another thing that works. And over time, you start increasing. And over time, you'll get it to profitability, because that is how the game is played. And that is why I wanted to shoot this video with all of you. So I hope that helps, and I'll talk to y'all soon.